Elias Thorne, a man whose ruthlessness in business was legendary, drove his imported sedan through a maze of downtown construction, the glass and steel reflecting his own formidable image. He was nearing a bustling plaza, a place usually beneath his notice, when a flicker of movement by a derelict, shuttered cafe stopped him cold. Huddled on the cold stone, wrapped in layers of filthy, ragged garments, was a pregnant woman. Her dark, matted hair shielded a face etched with bone-deep weariness and unmistakable fear. The way she shielded her prominent belly spoke of desperation and fierce, primal protection. Elias felt a sudden, sharp, inexplicable blow to his chest. That face, impossible, yet the profile, even marred by hardship, was achingly familiar. Clara Mendez. Clara, the bright, ambitious girl from his high school, the one he watched from a distance, the object of his silent, intense admiration. She was the one linked to his teenage past by a single, shameful, unresolved act of envy and cruelty. He hadn't seen her since they left school, never dared to look back. Now, he was confronted by the stark, painful wreckage of her life. He pulled the car over, his usual composure dissolving. Stepping onto the cold pavement, the roar of the city faded, replaced by the frantic beating of his own heart. He knew instantly he couldn't drive away. Elias walked over slowly, his expensive suit jarring against the poverty of the scene. The chill in the air didn't compare to the icy grip of recognition. "Clara?" he asked, the name a rusty sound in his throat. The woman looked up with agonizing slowness. Her eyes, which he remembered as quick and sharp, were dull, but widened in a flash of terror and recognition. "Elias?" she whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse. For a long, painful moment, neither spoke. The air was thick, heavy with the weight of years and unspoken history. Shame washed over Clara. She tried to shrink away, pulling her threadbare shawl tighter. "What happened to you?" Elias pressed, the question escaping with a force he couldn't contain. Clara's gaze darted away, fixed on a spot on the dirty sidewalk. "It doesn't concern you. We're fine, Elias. You need to leave." Elias took a step closer, noticing the frantic, shallow breath she was taking, the involuntary shivering despite her attempts to hide it. "Look at me, Clara. You are pregnant, cold, and sitting on a sidewalk in November. You're definitively not fine." He paused, letting the harsh truth settle. "You are coming with me. Right now. I won't take no for an answer." Clara looked at his face, searching for a trace of disdain she expected, but found only a determined, almost urgent concern. She was exhausted, terrified, and utterly depleted of resistance. The sheer weight of her situation forced her surrender. Relief wore with a sense of dread as Clara nodded, a nearly imperceptible movement. Elias immediately pulled out his phone, his tone snapping back to the authoritative executive. "Garcia, I need the armored car at the corner of Central and 14th in 4 minutes. Emergency." He ended the call and turned back to Clara. "We don't have time to waste." He extended his hand, large and warm, a lifeline. Clara hesitantly took it, her hand icy, her grip trembling. Elias helped her stand, steadying her frail frame. When the sleek, intimidating black car arrived, Elias ensured she was settled comfortably in a heated leather seat, his attention focused entirely on her well-being. During the journey to his secluded estate, a long, quiet drive away from the chaos of the city, Clara kept her head turned toward the tinted window, watching the blur of the outside world. A world she had recently been cast out of flashed by. She felt intensely exposed, vulnerable, and profoundly uncomfortable being in such extravagant luxury. "This is not my place," she thought, the shame a bitter taste in her mouth. Elias, sitting opposite her, watched her discreetly. He was grappling with the shock and the guilt. How could I have let this happen? He silently interrogated himself, the image of his past mistake suddenly sharper, more relevant than ever. When the car swept through the majestic gates of Elias's property, revealing the palatial manor, Clara gasped, pulling back slightly. The warm, amber light spilling from the windows seemed to mock her current destitution. "Elias, this is too much. I can't," she began, protesting weakly. Elias cut her off with gentle finality. "Enough, Clara. You are here. You will rest. We will talk later." His longtime housekeeper, Mrs. Davies, opened the imposing front door, her face a mask of practiced neutrality that couldn't quite hide her surprise at the sight of her master escorting a heavily pregnant woman in rags. Elias immediately took charge. He led Clara to the grand living room, ushered her to a plush velvet sofa, and ignited a massive stone fireplace, the warmth instantly pushing back the chill. He instructed Mrs. Davies to prepare the most comfortable guest suite and to bring hot broth and nourishing food immediately. "Thank you, Elias." "Truly," Clara whispered, tears finally escaping as the reality of safety set in. She carefully placed her hands on her belly, a gesture of comfort. Elias simply nodded, his own turmoil hidden beneath a composed exterior. He knew the fight wasn't over. He had to face his own complicity, but first, he had to secure her safety and health. The morning sun, filtered through thick velvet drapes, found Clara awake, sitting upright in the massive, soft bed. She was clean, warm, and the exhaustion that had been her constant companion for months was beginning to recede. She carefully touched her belly. "We are safe, little one," she thought, but the relief was tempered by a gnawing anxiety. What right did she have to this luxury? What did Elias expect? Her shame felt amplified by the grandeur of her surroundings. Meanwhile, in a spacious, minimalist office, Elias stared out over his sprawling grounds. Sleep had eluded him. He was haunted by the memory of the past, and the stark contrast with the present. The Clara he had known was spirited, full of life, not this broken echo. A gentle knock brought him back to the moment. It was Mrs. Davies, confirming arrangements. Shortly after, the housekeeper was at Clara's door. "Miss Mendez, breakfast is prepared. Mr. Thorne is waiting for you in the dining room." Clara took a deep breath, smoothing the borrowed silk robe. She knew this was the moment of reckoning. Clara entered the magnificent dining room, where a dazzling array of food, fruits, pastries, eggs awaited. Elias, sharp and imposing in a custom-tailored shirt, rose as she entered. "Good morning, Clara. Please sit." He pulled out a heavy chair for her. "Thank you," she managed, the silence stretching uncomfortably as they ate. Elias let her eat, observing the care with which she ate, ensuring she nourished herself. When she finally pushed her plate away, the formality dropped. Elias leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table. His expression was serious, compassionate, but unwavering. "Clara, we need to speak honestly. I need to understand what led you to that plaza." Clara avoided his eyes, tracing the pattern on the linen tablecloth. "It's a very difficult story to share, Elias, and it's painful. I am not here to judge your choices. I only want to know the truth so I can actually help," he insisted. "Being pregnant and on the street is not a random occurrence. What happened after high school?" Clara took a shaky breath, closing her eyes against a wave of memory. "After graduation, I started dating Martin Shaw." Elias's jaw tightened. The name was a lightning rod. Martin, the arrogant, charismatic student everyone admired, the one he had secretly despised. "I remember him," Elias replied, his voice dangerously low. "I fell for him completely. I truly thought we had a future." Her voice cracked. "A few months later, I found out I was pregnant. When I told him, he became cold. He said it was a mistake, that he wasn't ready to be a father, and that he wanted nothing to do with it." She paused, gathering her strength. "He abandoned me that day. Just vanished. I was alone. My family was struggling and couldn't support me. I worked, tried to save, but without my degree, I only found minimum wage jobs. Then the morning sickness became severe, and I lost my last job. The landlord evicted me 2 months ago when I couldn't make rent. Since then, it's been the streets, relying on the kindness of strangers, trying to keep myself and the baby alive." She finished, her chest heaving, the full weight of her degradation laid bare. Elias sat in stunned silence, processing the brutal narrative. The strong, vibrant Clara had been systematically broken by hardship and betrayal. His initial anger at Martin was profound. "Why didn't you reach out to anyone, Clara? Why suffer in silence?" he finally asked, his voice softer now. "I was too ashamed," she admitted, the word tasting like ash. "Ashamed of failure. I couldn't face people who knew me when I had promise, especially not someone as successful as you." Elias reached across the table, his hand covering hers. Clara, listen to me. No one should have to endure this. You are a victim of circumstances and a terrible man. You are not a failure. You are not alone anymore. I will help you ensure a safe life for you and this child. Why, Elias? She asked, her eyes searching his. Why are you doing all of this? He held her gaze, recognizing that the moment for partial truths was over. Because I care about you, and because there's a past connection, a burden of guilt I carry, that makes your suffering something I cannot ignore. Clara remained silent, her mind racing. His words, a burden of guilt, struck her with profound confusion. Elias didn't elaborate, simply offering her a supportive presence. The following days brought a semblance of stability. Doctors confirmed the baby was healthy despite the ordeal, and Elias ensured Clara had access to everything she needed. One quiet evening, Elias asked her to meet him in his study. The atmosphere felt charged. He was ready to execute the next phase of his plan. He presented her with a detailed packet. I want you to begin building your future immediately. The packet contained enrollment forms and a full scholarship offer for an intensive, accelerated business and entrepreneurship program at a local university. You are intelligent, Clara. You deserve more than a menial job. This will give you the tools to be truly independent and secure a future for your child. Clara was speechless, staring at the forms. Elias, this is a university degree? I can't. I don't have the time or the money, and I'll need to focus on the baby. I will cover every expense. And you will have Mrs. Davies and a full staff here to ensure you are cared for, that you can focus 100% on your studies. This is about establishing a foundation that can never be taken away from you again. Elias spoke with absolute conviction. I know you are capable of this. Please, for your child's sake, accept this chance. His words, for your child's sake, were the final persuasive force. She knew he was offering her the only way out, the only way to break the cycle. She agreed. Clara threw herself into her studies with a desperate focus. Elias, meanwhile, had begun his own deep dive into the past. He instructed his private investigation team to discreetly track down Martin Shaw. He needed to understand the man's current status, his resources, and any potential threat he posed to Clara or the child. A few weeks into Clara's program, Elias walked into the study where she was working, holding a simple manila folder. The air immediately tightened. We need to talk about Martin, Elias said, his voice flat. Clara immediately looked up, her heart pounding. What about him? I found him. I tracked him down and confronted him about abandoning you and his child. Clara jumped up, startled. You what? Elias, you had no right to interfere. Elias remained calm. Perhaps not, but I needed to know what kind of man he was now. I needed to know the truth he was hiding. Clara sat back down, trembling. What did he say? She whispered. Elias opened the folder, revealing a terse report. He admitted everything. He felt no remorse. He confirmed he was too selfish, too immature, and that it was easier to cut and run. He made it clear he would never acknowledge the child. Clara's eyes filled with tears, a mix of fury and devastating finality. He didn't even ask about the baby, she cried. No, Clara, he didn't, Elias confirmed, his own anger radiating from him. He is completely out of your life, and that is a good thing. Elias stood and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You don't need him. You don't need to carry this pain. I am here for you. That night, Clara felt a strange sense of liberation. The closure, though painful, was absolute. There was nothing left to hope for from Martin. She was free to look only forward. With the past seemingly sealed, Clara settled into a routine of study, rest, and preparation. Elias's support became a constant, warm presence. The initial awkwardness between them dissolved into genuine affection and mutual respect. She was thriving, recovering her health and her ambition. One day, Elias walked into her study with a different kind of folder. I have a proposition that can integrate your studies and give you real-world experience, he said, placing the folder on the desk. It was a contract for a project coordinator position at Thorn Industries. The role was flexible, allowing her to continue her studies and prepare for motherhood. I'm not doing this as charity, Clara. I believe you have the organizational mind we need. You are capable of this. Clara hesitated. The idea of working so closely with him, of accepting yet another huge favor, creating internal conflict. Elias, Say yes, he urged, his eyes shining with belief. She eventually agreed, acknowledging this was the best step for her future. Clara excelled in the role, surprising even herself with her efficiency and quick understanding of the business world. Elias was often nearby, mentoring her, and his pride was evident. Their professional closeness naturally evolved into something more personal. Lingering glances, shared meals, and comfortable silences began to define their evenings. One afternoon, while Clara was reviewing archived documents for a historical project in the mansion's vast, seldom-used basement, she came across a dusty box labeled Thorne Personal Files. Curiosity compelled her to open it. Beneath old legal documents, she found a high school disciplinary report and an accompanying personal letter from Elias Thorne. The report detailed the expulsion of a student named Martin Shaw for a theft he claimed he didn't commit. The letter, dated over a decade ago, was a tearful, youthful confession from Elias to the school principal. Elias admitted to planting the evidence on Martin out of intense jealousy and rivalry, an attempt to publicly humiliate the boy he hated. Elias Thorne had been the true, original cause of Martin Shaw's downfall. Clara stood frozen, the papers shaking in her hands. Elias hadn't just known Martin, he had ruined him. The sudden, reckless abandonment that set Clara on her destructive path was a direct result of Elias's teenage malice, a malice he had kept hidden for years. She realized, with a sickening drop in her stomach, that the entire rescue, the mansion, the money, the job, the relentless care, was not merely a magnanimous gesture. It was a desperate, decade-long act of atonement. She climbed the stairs, the heavy papers clutched like evidence, her face pale, and found Elias in his study. "I found this," she said, her voice strained, placing the documents on his mahogany desk. Elias looked at the papers, and his face instantly became ashen. He knew the charade was over. "Clara, please. Let me explain." "Explain what?" she demanded, her voice rising. "That you ruined Martin's life, which set him on a destructive spiral, which led to him abandoning me, which is why I am pregnant and homeless. You didn't just find me. You caused me. This child is connected to your past because you created this situation." Her chest heaved with a devastating mix of anger and betrayal. Elias lowered his head, a gesture of defeat. "Yes, I did it. I was jealous, hateful, immature. I planted the evidence to humiliate him. I never imagined it would lead to expulsion, or that it would eventually destroy your life. When I saw you on the street, it was a crushing realization of what my childish malice had cost you. Everything I've done, the help, the support, the love I've grown to feel for you, it has all been my attempt to make things right, to redeem myself from suffering I caused." He looked up, his eyes filled with genuine, agonizing remorse. "I love you, Clara. I know I betrayed you by keeping the truth, but I couldn't bear to lose you before I could show you that I was a changed man. I take full responsibility for what I did to Martin and for the consequences it had on you. But the man I am now wants to be a father to your child, to be your partner, and to spend the rest of my life proving that my present devotion is greater than my past mistake." Clara stood motionless, the conflicting emotions warring within her. The searing pain of his betrayal and the undeniable safety and future he had built around her. The baby, this innocent life, was a direct consequence of a feud that began a lifetime ago. She realized she was facing a choice: condemn him for the actions of a hateful boy, or accept the love of the man who risked everything to redeem his soul and save hers.